In the Decade app, I try to host somewhat frequent webinars for my members where they can either send in questions in advance or they can actually just pop questions into chat and I'll answer them live. Usually about an hour, 2 hours long, something like that. This month's was about an hour and 45 minutes long, a little bit longer than usual, simply because I'm getting ready for Champions Tour Q School. So I was kind of showing everybody, here's what I'm doing to prepare for a golf tournament after really not playing very much golf over the last 3 months. But I hope you enjoy this. It's just kind of a signal or an example of what you get to see and learn in the Decade app. We've got some specials coming up for Black Friday and for the holidays, so you can join the thousands and thousands of other golfers that are playing better golf, shooting lower scores, and having more fun on the golf course. I also try to give as much advice as I can on things like meditation and mindset, simply because I've been through a bunch of crazy stuff in my life with the double murder suicide in my immediate family and just all kinds of stuff. And that's really the biggest compliment I get, is when people tell me that they've actually learned more about living a better life than even golf through the app. So I hope you enjoyed this little segment of what the Decade app is all about, and I hope you will join the thousands and thousands of other golfers, again, like I say, that are shooting better scores and having a lot more fun on the course and in life. Anyways, let's get to it. So the next question that I had here was somebody asking about what's the best way to use the Decade driving targets. And then somebody else asked, what does the live button mean? Well, the live button is very simple. It does it from exactly where you're standing. So when you're setting up the program right here, I'm going to go with 300. I'm actually going to go to 320 and 70 and 280 and 70, and then about 250 and 50. So, because I go driver, mini driver, but really also what I'm doing this more than anything for is downwind and into the wind. I feel like my driving average should be about 305 or 310 ish. And so I'm really now trying to say, if I stretch it out, or if we get on the holes that are downwind, if we get on the holes that are into the wind, here's the numbers I'm looking for. It's why I'm leaving the width roughly the same. And then I've got, I can't imagine a scenario where a hole's so tight that I'm not at least trying to hit it 230 to 250 off the tee. So now I'm going to give myself 50. So the live feature is the stock deal is, so I'm just going to leave all these as the back tee boxes. And then when we start here, hopefully, I guess sometimes this actually doesn't work very well when I do it on the computer. What we're going to try to do here, so now I'm going to go to my 320 driving target. Oops, tee shot. I always like to spin it like a book. So if I were on the golf course and I pushed live and I were standing over here by the cart path, it would give me the driving targets from where I'm standing. So sometimes there might be a new tee box or God knows what's going on. So when you're doing that, it does it exactly from where you're standing. So live means where I'm standing. That's the first question. Jack B says, what do you think about having an off-speed driver, tee down fairway finder? I think you know that answer, Jack. I hate it. I literally hate it. I hate everything about it. I really do firmly believe the driver should just be stock every single time. I don't think you should flight it. I don't think you should change shape. I don't like with my irons. I will never try to draw it, but I will straighten it out some. So if the wind is off the left at 15, if it's blowing less than 15, unless there's a tree in the way, I'm not going to do anything with shape. I'm going to just step up there and hit my stock cut, and I'm just going to play for the wind. But think about it, because I used to hit a bunch of bunty drivers. But if you think about it, how much longer are you trying to hit a bunty driver than you would just hit your stock 3-wood or mini driver? I really do believe that the vast majority of the PGA Tour will have a mini driver in their bag within a few years. It's just, especially because, well, here's a Sasha thing. The larger the club head, the further the center of mass is from the shaft, and the harder that is to fade. I'm sure that's just a physics principle that he and Marty came up with somehow. But historically, the guys who hit it the furthest fade it. Tiger did. Bubba fades 100% of his drivers. He never tries to draw a driver. Duval faded it. Keith Mitchell fades it. DJ fades it. Brooks fades it. Zalatoris fades it. I mean, everybody except for DeChambeau that I can think of that hits it far fades it. And Bryson's able to do it because he's got such a weak grip, and then he's trying to have all of his joints at the end range of motion. So he's basically trying to hold the club essentially as hard this way as he can. And then he's just trying to move this lever as fast as he possibly can. And he's actually like trying to snap hook it. But because of where his joints and everything are, like it's actually impossible for him to get the face that close the path. And I think that's honestly, it's something he and Como came up with. And honestly, I think it's brilliant. Like it really works, but you better know what you're doing. So most guys are going to have a little bit stronger grip. It's funny because when I was younger, stronger grip, they're like, ooh, that's a hooker's grip. Like, find me somebody with a really strong grip that hits it far, that draws it. You're just not going to find one. Zach Johnson has a strong grip and draws it, but he doesn't hit it hard. So to your point, or to my point rather, about the mini driver is, so now so many guys, hammer fade driver. If you got mini driver set up for hammer draw, and then I just bent, personally, I've got a 20-degree Shrixon 3-iron that I might have gotten a little carried away with. I've had it at 18 degrees forever, and I just bent it to 16 degrees 2 days ago, which we'll see if I leave it at that. It's a rocket. I was literally carrying them like 250 and rolling out to 270 because I do have a huge gap between my mini driver and 3-iron, but that's just a gap I don't care about. Like if I'm worried about a shot from 260, like I don't need to be that accurate from 260. I just need to get it in the vicinity of the green. So I'm trying to get all tee shots covered: hammered fade, hammered draw, and hammered straight ball. Again, everybody, a flat faced driving iron, everybody hits straighter than a bulge and roll hybrid. I hit it hard enough that I don't need the help that a hybrid gives you. So hybrids are definitely easier to hit and get up in the air and everything like that. And I'm definitely going to have a few more like miss hits distance wise, but I'm not going to have the same problem directionally that I would with a hybrid. So for me, I just think that's the optimal bag setup. And I think that most guys on tour are figuring that out. There's just a million of them now. I mean, there's a million, but there's a bunch of guys on tour, and definitely a bunch of guys on the Corn Ferry Tour, and definitely a bunch of guys in college that are playing essentially that exact same setup. And I'd be stunned, to be perfectly honest, if somebody doesn't win the Masters sometime soon with a mini driver in the bag. It's the one club. I mean, again, that there's not really any holes that you have to fade it on, but there's a number of left to right, I should say. So we're clear on shape. There's not that many you have to hit it left to right on, but there's a number. You need to hit it right to left on 2. You need to hit it right to left on 10, 13. The only place you need a 3-wood is potentially 15. And if you've got a 3-wood into 15, you should probably lay up, because that's not a very smart play. So really a 3-wood is just an irrelevant club at Augusta National. And so I do think that getting those guys to use a mini driver is for sure. I mean, again, Zalatoris, I went out there last summer and to Dallas National and had him hit my mini driver. And we were just on a random hole that's just dead straight. And I was like, I just want you to pretend you're on 10 at Augusta, and I want you to hammer this thing with like a 20-yard draw. And he just hit 6 in a row that just went straight through the prior one's vapor trail and all carried about 300. Like, it was magical. I mean, unfortunately, that club had a TaylorMade stamped on the bottom of it. Otherwise, I think he would have taken mine from me. It is unbelievable. But Titleist, he literally texted a picture of it to the Titleist guys and said, we need to get something like this. And they replied almost instantly with a picture of their prototype of one. I have no idea if they've actually put it together or not now, but I think everybody's kind of figuring this out. So no, Jack, no off-speed drivers. Hit your driver normal. And if you're thinking off-speed, drop back to your 3-wood or mini driver. I really, really believe that. Neely, my junior golfer buddy, good to see you always, man. You're working hard. I appreciate that. I really do. You're in every one of these, and you're asking questions. That's awesome. Scott, what is a generic par 5 second shot strategy, especially when you cannot reach the green? Well, that's a great question. And honestly, I haven't, I've had these things. I've got my Mark Brody. I've got all my laminated pages from Every Shot Counts. You just really have to realize that if you're out there at 300 yards, oh my gosh, here we go. First time ever on camera, readers. Oh no. If you're out there 300 generically in the fairway, the average score is 3.78. if you're out there 240 in the fairway, average score is 3.45. In order to get that, so if we move it from 3.45 to 3.4, we gain a little bit. So from 240, if you can put it to 20 yards in the fairway, that's a positive strokes gain shot. So my generic par 5 second shot strategy is always get it as close to the green as physically possible without taking on a penalty shot. That's it. I mean, in no circumstance would I ever be laying up to 80 yards if I can get it to 40. I mean, again, maybe if the greens are absolutely rock hard and the pin's on the front, I mean, maybe, but still, I'd still probably get it up there to 40 yards because honestly, at the end of the day, even from 80 yards with rock hard greens, you're going to land it pin high. You can't come up short. You come up short, now you're in a front bunker to rock hard greens. Nice bogey. Great job. At least at 40 yards, I can pitch it to 20 feet long. And if they're really that hard from 80 yards, again, we're setting the stage by saying the greens are hard. If we're 80 yards and I land it pin high, it's probably skipping to 15 feet. I don't really care the difference between a 15 and a 20 footer. It's basically the same thing. So it'd be a really weird situation for me to not getting it as close as I can. The next question that somebody asked here from Seth is, you mentioned that you were fine cruising around the 170 ball speed. However, in past videos, you said you want to be in the mid to low 180s. Why the change? Honestly, Seth, I've realized I'm kind of old and I keep on hurting myself. So the one thing that's interesting is, so my cruiser right now, I think is about 173. It's coming off at 13 degrees with 2,200 RPM spin would be my generic average. And so personally right now, when I start trying to kick that up, and I can get it up to 175 or 180. But when I do, the spin numbers start getting wonky. The spin rates may get up to 2,700 or 3,000. Like, it's similar to how I say the driver is the only club in the bag. Talking about shaping it one direction. The driver is the only club in the bag that is shaped, that is fit for a shape. So when I go get fit for a driver, I'm just hitting nothing but cuts. Well, now all of a sudden, if I take that same driver and I'm going to fit it to 2,200 RPM, whatever the optimal number is for my speed and launch angle. But now if I try to draw it, that spin number is going to drop because of, by definition, I have now squared the face and even gone past square to the face to path, which is, again, by definition, it's de-lofting it. That's really the only way that happens with the same club. I could take another club and fit it for me and have it optimized for a draw. But then when I tried to cut that club, it would become a spinny ball. So personally, I have everything optimized for that 173, 175 ball speed. And when I start kicking it up to 180, the club's just not built for that. And so if I do continue or get back into trying to chase speed, I'll probably have to get another driver fitting because it's just, this one's not going to do it. And so it really is about understanding, like, your 7-irons are 7-irons, your 7-iron. Like, it's not like you get that club, you get fit for a set of irons, but your driver is tailored for a swing speed and a shape. And again, this is where I find it so interesting that I have to argue. There's one instructor in particular, but he doesn't teach anybody on tour. Like, I'm not going to say he's irrelevant. He's a really big name in the biomechanics circles, but he just totally disagrees with this. And it's so weird to me because I'm like, go watch anybody who's good at driving the ball and they shape it one direction. They hit it the same speed. You just don't really find people going all over the place, all over the map with different speeds and trajectories and stuff, again, with the driver specifically. So if I get through and get some status, what I really plan on doing is just like what I tell if a tour player and I started working together and they were in the 172 or 173 ball speed, I would just say, you know what, just be getting faster. It's not like you need all hands on deck. Oh my God, I've got to find 5 miles an hour of ball speed over the next 12 months. But also, I wouldn't just be like, hey, I'm tour average, because you're not going to be tour average in 3 to 5 years. If I get a guy who's at 167, I'm like, buddy, you need to find some distance, because you might be surviving right now, but in 2 to 5 years, you're going to have some real problems. You just will not have a chance of being even 0 strokes gain driving off the tee. It's just not going to happen. And so that's really how I'm going to view it personally. I definitely, in talking to Dicky and just seeing what I see out there, I'd be stunned if anybody hits it. I mean, I know Pedreg definitely has a higher top end than me. I'd be stunned if our cruiser isn't roughly the same, especially considering I really hit pretty optimal numbers pretty consistently with it. So that's the main reason, Seth. And again, I do just keep hurting myself. I've really just my body has not been good since I've had COVID a couple times. Just joints. It's what's weird is my left rotator cuff is torn right now. I do need surgery on it, but like during the day, it feels fine. But at night, like I haven't slept more than 2 hours straight for the last week because it just starts aching so much. And actually, I've got an alarm that's going to go off later on right before I go to bed that says, put a note on my phone. I always just kind of look at what time it is whenever I wake up that says, go work out. And literally, my plan tonight is if I wake up and my shoulder's aching, I'm going to go work out. I mean, I don't care if it's 1 a.m. I'm going to do like a 10-minute workout, try to just get some blood in there, get moving because it's going to be a problem eventually. I mean, again, I really can get it to where I can play and practice right now during the day, but eventually it's just going to seize up on me. So, all right. So back to John's question, what will my qualifying look like the weeks during the prep? So again, I'm not kidding. I know I've said this a million times. I've literally played 18 holes. Actually, I've played 18 holes 4 times since July. And my 5th time I played golf was in that Champions Tour Pro-Am. And we actually only got to play 14 holes because somebody vandalized the golf course the night before the Pro-Am. And so they closed 4 of the holes. So I've literally played 4.5 rounds of golf. Like actually, like I have not even played in 9 holes. Like I'm literally not kidding. I've played 4.5 rounds of golf, but I've practiced a decent amount. I mean, I can duck out for 2 hours and practice, but the idea of ducking out for an hour to warm up, to play 9 holes, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just haven't had the time for it. And I've just personally decided staying as flexible as I can, keeping my wrist as flexible as I can is more important than playing 9 holes. I mean, just how much interesting stuff is going to happen in 9 holes. Now, if you play a bunch of rounds, it's going to be better. But so my goal this week, tomorrow, I'm playing with Derek Ernst, who's been on the PGA Tour a few times. He still has status out there now, I think, from a win. He's got second stage coming up. So we're going to play golf tomorrow and Tuesday. And the way I'm viewing this, if I play bad, I don't think it'll dent my confidence too much because I'll be like, well, we're knocking rust off. But if I play good, I think it could really just be what catapults me to be like, yep, exactly what I'm working on is correct. The challenge is on the range. I'm hitting it really well, but I just don't really have a frame of reference of how bad my bad shots are. So, I mean, I'm definitely hitting bad shots while out there on the range, but it's just like, was that in the water or was that just in the right bunker? I really don't know. And, reading greens but I do believe Decade is a cheat code to where you don't have to have years and years and years of experience to pick targets and to strategically work your way around the green. But similar in nature is Tour Read from Ralph Bauer. Aim Point's awesome. I think it's a great start, but now Ralph Bauer has, and it might just be what works for my brain better. He's actually formulated an equation where, again, it's too hard to describe, but basically he's turned green reading into a math-based problem, especially from 5 to 12 feet, which is really where getting your read precise matters. It's just fantastic. Again, it's Tour Read Golf by Ralph Bauer. There's an app in your app store. Actually, the app is what he's all excited about. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool because you set your phone on the ground, you tell it what speed the green is, you tell it how long the putt is, and it tells you how much it breaks from the outside edge. But it's just doing a formula for you that you can learn. So really, I think that in a day or two, I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 days working on reads on the green out at Old American here in Dallas. I think the green's probably rolling 9.5. Like it's the fastest thing I can find around here that I have access to. Royal Oaks was pretty good last week. It was probably rolling 10.5, maybe 11. So I got to do some good speed work. But then most importantly, John, I've been working with this metronome a ton. If you just use an online metronome, I mean, my speed's been dicey for sure in my practice sessions for a couple months. Like, oh my God. But taking that metronome and really re-ingraining that feel into myself. And what's funny is actually then 78 beats per minute is what I feel best at. And so I actually Googled songs 78 beats per minute, and one of the ones that came up was that song Hey Ho by the Lumineers. And I can just totally hear that drum beat, just like, to just think of the metronome in my head is hard, but I can kind of hum that song and get the beat pretty accurate. And so my plan is to practice. I've been practicing exclusively with an AirPod in one ear so I can still hear everything outside, because you want to hear contact. You want to, you don't want to be just in a tunnel. You want to still have your other senses working, but then just having that beat just tapping. And then I'm just trying to start. It's actually why I put my putter in here. And so then, as I showed the other day on Instagram, I take two pillows. Sorry, I'm having to go back further than I planned on. A pillow here, so take your stance and then put a pillow just outside your toes. And then just at whatever your beats are, start around 75 to 80 probably. And then you're just tapping it. And then you're just tapping the pillows to the beat. And I'd be surprised, feel free to check me, if that's not roughly 78 beats per minute. And so doing that, and what's weird, this is really weird to me, honestly, whether it's a short putt, it's still the same versus a long putt. Now it's actually the same beat, which I don't get. You would think it would be all over the place because of the different length stroke, but it's the same beat. And so I've done a really good job of getting that back into my head. And my speed control, I mean, I'm just putting basically straight, and basically like a 1 to 1.5% slope, 20 to 40 footer, but my speed's been really good. Now we start throwing a 30 footer where you're coming up over a crest or a hill. That's going to be a challenge for me. So again, back to John's question, what am I going to be doing? I'm doing speed drills here. Like, I feel like that's my best use of time here. Then when I get out there, I'm going to just basically be hitting chip shots out of rough around the greens, because I just have not been able to practice out of the rough very much lately. And then trying to find just crazy putts. I mean, again, I don't have a clue what the greens are going to be like here, but if they're, I'm not going to practice much outside of 40 feet. I'll hit some 40 to 50 footers. I really won't practice hardly at all outside of 50 feet, because I'm like, if I hit very many shots outside of 50 feet, I'm probably not going to make it anyways. So I'm really going to just need to be tidy from 20 to 40 feet, not too many three putts, whole bunch of tap ins from inside 30 feet, and then try to really get precise on my reads from 5 to 12 feet. I've got a digital level that I'm just crossing my fingers. I probably just need to take it out of my bag. I'm crossing my fingers I don't forget and take it out on the course, because you can't do that now on tour. You can't use any devices. So I'm hoping I don't screw that up and get myself disqualified before the week even starts. But that's definitely how I plan on trying to prepare. Those are my main things I'm focusing on for sure. iPhone asks, that's a weird name. iPhone asks, what do you think is the proper play for a tweener yardage? Shorter swing club hard or longer club soft? That's totally personal. I do not ever try to hit a club hard. I just suck at it. So I am definitely longer club soft. I talk a lot about winning requires luck. I do think that one of the things of winning requires luck is simply having a bunch of good numbers throughout the course of a week. I think that's pretty convenient if you happen to have some. So I'm personally, I'd say through the 8-iron. So Stuart Sink, the video where I show him winning out in Hilton Head, he and Reagan, his son, are in the middle of the 18th fairway on Saturday or Friday, and saying, well, it's like 187 or something. And he's like, I think it's a 5 off 7. And Reagan says, I think it's maybe a 10. And I think what that means is they've got full shot, 5 off, 10 off, next club. Full shot, 5 off, 10 off, next club. It's not like if my 8-iron's 160 and I'm 157, it's not like I'm trying to hit it 157. I normally would be. I'm going to basically have 2 swings, full and half off. I wouldn't even say 5 or 10, just halfway between there and my next club. And I'm just going to pick one of the two, whichever one is closest to the number. But outside of 8-iron, I'm just going to hit them stock. I don't think I'll have the ability to really, especially with the 6 iron and longer, just have the ability. But that's one thing I think will be really interesting to see if I can actually pull off doing. Because if I'm 193, I can't get a 6 iron there, and it's not a very hard 5 iron. Like, what's my plan? Just hammer a 5 iron long? Well, if the pin's on the back, I'm going to hammer a 6 iron. If the pin's on the front, I'm going to hit a 5 iron. I think that's going to be what's going to work for me. So that's just a highly specific personal question, which one's best.